Sylvia was a interesting personality. She saw a lot of grassroots needs. She herself maybe left her house at 11 or 12 years old and was hustling on the street. A lot of young feminine gay males, they didn't fit in their households and they left. There were no opportunities owed to them, but they were young kids, they were teenagers. So they would come to the village. In many ways they would be, picked up and abused on drugs. What had happened to Sylvia herself? She wanted an organization that would basically provide a haven for these runaways to go to, where they would learn. This is really funny. It never occurred to Sylvia that they could possibly fit in and get real jobs and pass as females. That was a little before the time of the great advances in transsexualism and that type of thing. But she felt if they had a hustle, someone should show them how to hustle correctly and be safe. If they had to use drugs, someone should supervise that they didn't abuse. If they had boyfriends, they should be treated nicely by their boyfriends. They should get some sort of an education and maybe, if possible, an entry-level job if it all went well for them to get them off hustling. So she had this really grassroots idea of what should be done for transsexual and drag-oriented teenagers. She wanted a house where these runaways could come to, and she'd play den mother. And that's basically, and then STAR was also there to politically fight, having been excluded from the gay rights bill. They would go with their banners and participate in a demonstration or participate in a march, and basically just make a public impression that there's another kind of gay, the drag queen gay, who would, and even though they knew about the heterosexual transvestite STAR people were all drag queens. It was not very tightly organized, but they did succeed in getting a house, and they did succeed in adopting, setting up this familial structure for about 4 or 5 young people, many of whom took advantage of them, and just because you were alone and on the street didn't mean you were a nasty bastard in your heart. But Sylvia was a very giving person, and she opened her doors to anybody who needed help. Now, she had her own demons, but she always was willing to help someone who was down and out, really, and without questioning. If you needed a place to stay, you needed a sandwich or food, you could have what she had.
Did you find much support from any of the gay liberation groups, the other gay liberation groups?
No, maybe by speech-wise, but you got to remember, a lot of the STAR people were drug users, so why would you give them a donation? That kind of thing. A lot of the people were engaging in definite illegal activities, prostitution and robbing Johns and whatnot. So there were a lot of reasons why people couldn't wholeheartedly. Some people, like I think some of the more thinking ones, like in particular Bob Cullen, could rationalize that these were down and out people, that a lot of their acting out was the fact that they had been disabused as growing up and all this other stuff, and they were not part of society. And he would help when he could, and he rationalized helping them. But the mainstream groups thought them as an embarrassment and criminals, and not going anywhere to begin with, so why throw good after bad? If the sponsoring agent of STAR had been the Episcopalian Church or the B'nai B'rith, everybody said, oh, how nice, they're doing this out of charity. But because it was sponsored by drag queens themselves, and the mainstream gays looking down at the drag queens couldn't see any good coming from that, had it been sponsored by the National Gay Task Force, it probably would have been much more successful. But the ideas that she started, they've been picked up and improved on, like by the Trevor Project, by some of the gay youths. Wherever there is a sort of a home for gay runaways, or what you would call transgendered kids now, that really is a reflection of Sylvia's dreams.